This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Daws.
Hello and welcome to Partners in Crime again, and this time we are back together. Those of you who are watching through the Patreon page and are watching on video will see we are a very socially distanced, socially conscious 2 metres apart. I can just about see you there, Bob, down at the other end of the garden.
I can see you too. There is no hiding place, my dear sir. Now, this is lovely. It's like being stuck in the middle of the Chelsea Flower Show.
Well, yeah, we were looking forward to getting back together and being able to do, when we could legally and properly, doing the show back together again rather than half a mile apart, which, to be fair, was socially distanced.
Yes.
It's not. It was meant to be a bit easier once we were back together. I must say, getting all of this set up this morning has probably taken more time than we used to do wrestling with video conferencing stuff.
Well, it's going to be a struggle for you, particularly setting all this up when we go daily. And of course, that's not just the logistics of getting the studio set up in an alien space, albeit your lovely back garden. But it's also a question of sort of checking the weather constantly.
Yeah.
Adam, I have to say, was texting me this morning with updates on percentages of precipitation in the mid-Bedfordshire area, and it was touch and go whether we were going to go. There's a bit of excitement, I thought. And eventually he gave the green light at about 9 o'clock and said, go.
Let's do it. The thing is, with the forecast, it's mid-June, so the forecast is saying 24 degrees, but with a chance of rain throughout the day. So we're sitting here outside. We're either going to be too hot and in blazing sun, or we're going to get rained on. So either way, we probably need to crack on. I think that's probably the takeaway message there.
Before we start steaming.
Now, we've both had news this week,
yes,
which has been very exciting. We'll start with yours because...
Oh, well, thank you very much indeed. Yes, I've had an extraordinarily exciting week because my new publishers, Hobeck publishers, have launched their website and their business, and I'm their first author, and I'm incredibly proud. Well, I'll tell you what, they've knocked my socks off. It's run by Adrian Hobart, who listeners to this show will know, who has ably sat in this seat for me and shown me how to do it properly on several occasions. And Rebecca Collins, they've set up Hobeck. They've both got great experience of publishing and broadcasting and audio and everything else. And I'd had a year, more than a year out, really. I was continuing doing the broadcasting, but I was too busy doing the acca-ting, and I'd sort of taken my eye off the ball of publishing, and they've brought me back into the fold, and I'm absolutely delighted. So the press release and website were launched yesterday. The new books and covers will be out shortly, and the newish book of the rock series, Killing Rock, will be available through Hobeck and on all major platforms, including Kobo, from July the 14th, and the other books will be out before then. And it's been great since we've launched. I'm happy to say, and to brag, albeit in a rather self-conscious way, that both The Rock and Poison Rock are now at the top of the best-selling lists in crime and in serial killers. So that's an absolutely cracking start, and I thank Rebecca and Adrian for that. So we're looking forward to a long and hopefully happy relationship with them, with the new book Blood Rock out just after Christmas.
Brilliant.
That's me. That's me talking about myself.
Well, no, I was going to touch on the fact
that enough about me. What do you think about me? No, don't answer that. Don't answer that.
We cover that when you're not on and we have guest hosts. I was going to mention we've bored people on this podcast time and time again with the different forms of publishing and how it all works and industry insider bits and bobs. But the thing about Adrian's publishers, Hobeck, the company that he set up, is that they, from what I can see from the outside, they're taking the best of both worlds.
Yeah. That's the
you
idea.
get the indie spirit and the one-on-one approach. It feels like somebody's actually looking after your career, looking after your books, but with all the clout and power that comes from having somebody else's money behind you, which is great.
Well, they do, and they're passionate about this. The spirit of the publishing, and it's one of the things that I was drawn to immediately. Yes, they are new, but they are experienced, and they're absolutely passionate, and they're at a time in their lives when they're completely focused on books, and they love writers, they love reading, obviously, but they have a passion for getting good books to readers. And in fact, and this may make you blush beneath your tan, they do cite you as a major influence in their development for your sage advice and wisdom, which of course is known throughout the publishing world.
Of course, he's only said that so that if it does all go boobs up for him, he can blame it squarely on me.
Absolutely not. No. But that would be well down the list of things I can blame on you. So don't you worry about that. So you've got some excellent news. Now this came as news to me. I take it this is the news you're going to tell me. And I read it on social media first.
It did not come as news to him, dear listeners. He's been told many times,
No,
but in his
not
old
the
age,
detail.
has forgotten.
Not in the detail, my boy. It wasn't not in the detail. I didn't know what it was about. I'm used to you. You say, I've got a new book coming out. You say that once a week. And so you forgive me for being a little blasé when you actually say, I've got a new book coming out. What
And
I
this one's
didn't
going to be
know-
good.
They're all good. Well, I don't have to say how good they are. That's in your best-selling status. But I have to say, when your newsletter came through, and social media came through, and you went into detail about what it was all about, I have to say, you're a dear friend, but I was completely and utterly gripped. And I thought, that is, a brilliant setting, a unique setting, and I just can't wait to read it. What I have to do to get a free copy.
I know.
But anyway, so please tell our dear listeners a little more.
Yeah, for those who haven't, who don't subscribe to my mailing list and who haven't heard this, the new series, which I've been planning for quite a long time actually, and writing for quite a long time, is set in the beautiful county of Rutland, which is England's smallest county. It's very small. I think the population of the entire county is about 30,000 people, and dominated in the centre of the county by Rutland Water, which I believe is one of the largest man-made lakes in Europe. And up until the late 60s, early 70s, that wasn't there. That was a valley that had 3 villages in it. And the water company came along, wanted to build this massive reservoir, and they did. They knocked down some of the buildings went back to about the 12th, 13th century, and they knocked them down, brought it all to the ground, filled the valley in, and filled it with water. And to this day, it remains a huge tourist attraction there.
Well, but there's also something I've always thought slightly menacing about the whole process by which a dam like that is made. That a community has gone. It's left its homes, it's left its memories, it's probably left its dead in the graveyard if there's a church or what have you. There's always something menacing about that. Apart from the sort of menacing, I've got a thing about water anyway, but I had no idea that was at the centre of Rutland. In fact, as far as I knew, that Rutland was just a comedy series that was
Rutland Weekend Television,
created in about the 70s by some ex-Monty Python stars.
Well, the reason for that is between 1974 and 1997, Rutland didn't exist. It was actually consumed into Leicestershire. Yeah.
Oh, so how did it get its independence back?
They changed the borders, and the unitary authorities, I think, came in 1997, and Rutland is now its own county. Interestingly, in real life, there is no Rutland Police. It's Leicestershire Police.
You've created the Rutland Police.
I have created their own police force, yes.
Yes.
The first book is called What Lies Beneath, which does obviously link in with exactly what you were saying. You never know what's buried below there.
I can see what you've done there.
Yep, literally and figuratively. You never know what's buried below. So that's where that all came from. And it's been really exciting, actually. I love the area. My parents live there. I visit very regularly, weekly, fortnightly, outside of COVID-19 times, so gagging to get back. And the community up there is brilliant anyway. So I put a little thing up on Twitter just saying, announcing this. Put the cover up, tagged a few people in who I know are kind of local up there, and it kind of went a little bit berserk locally up there, which is excellent. Within an hour or two, the Chief Constable of Leicestershire Police had retweeted it and was commenting on how good it looked. I've had contacts from lots of local newspapers, BBC Radio Leicestershire. They've all been on the phone, on the email, all coming to me for it, which is lovely. I don't have to go out and do the promotional stuff. They've kind of come to me, which
I'm not at all
nice.
surprised.
So it seems to be creating a bit of a stir up there, which is good.
Well, I don't know anything about Rutland. I've got two friends who live there, but I've never ever been. Well, actually, they include your mum and dad, and another friend, Michael, who's a theatre producer, and I do believe its other claim to fame is that Stephen Fry went to school in Rutland. But I've never been. But I always hear the wonderful things about it, the place. I hear wonderful things. They've got a very good brewery there as well.
Oh yeah.
Which I believe people rave about, but it's fantastic.
There's the Oakham Brewery, which is actually in Peterborough, and there's also the Grain Store Brewery in Oakham itself, which is right next to the railway station and well worth a visit.
Well, it sounds very exciting, although I should imagine some of our listeners might have switched off when it got to... Rutland used to be part of Leicestershire. It ceded from Leicestershire in 1950. But anyway, for a potted history of Rutland, is it the smallest county in the UK? Must be.
I believe so, yeah, or in England and Wales, or in Great Britain.
Right.
Wherever you draw the line, yes.
So the new book is What Lies Beneath?
Yeah, that comes out on the 28th of July.
Right.
So I should probably finish it.
Right, well, I pipped you to the post by a week, so it's going to be busy. But I mean, as I say, quite sincerely, I think it sounds like a fascinating idea, and the fact that it's got so much enthusiasm from Rutland itself, I think, bodes very well.
Well, hopefully we can put it on the map.
Well, you're certainly going to actually treble, quadruple, and its murder rate over the next few books. So,
oh, completely. There's virtually no crime there, and that's one of the things that really kind of appealed to me about it. It's such a scenic place, a lovely place. I thought, let's mess it up.
Well, we've both done this. I went to Gibraltar, that's got a very low crime rate. You've gone to Rutland, that's got a very low crime rate, and we've actually caused carnage.
Yes, but the thing is, it got a low crime rate, but they're both places that have got a real kind of spirit and atmosphere about them, and you can pull something out of there, and you think to yourself, actually, if there were some naughty wrong-uns around here, you could get some really decent stories out of it. But of course there are no naughty wrong-uns in either of those places, so we invent them.
It's the Midsummer Syndrome.
Midsummer Syndrome, yes.
A small county full of mayhem and skullduggery. Well, that's great. Well, anyway, best wishes. And do you think that's enough about us for now? Should we move on to other people?
Well, we can do, actually. Let's move on to quite a few other people, because the shortlist for the Theakston's Old Peculiar Crime Novel of the Year has been announced. We mentioned a couple of weeks back the long list, which has now been shortened.
Tell me, I don't know this. I'm literally on the edge of my seat.
Well, for the 16th Theakston Old Peculiar Crime Novel of the Year, this is. It takes the reader, the shortlist this year, on an international crime spree from New York to Calcutta, London to Lagos, via Glasgow and the Australian outback, apparently, according to what I'm reading here. There's one or two clues on the table. Oh, there's a helicopter.
Good Lord.
There we go.
It's Rutland TV.
It is. Their eye in the sky. It's the other camera I sent up, the drone, so you can get the overhead view. The news of the shortlist coincides with updated lockdown reading from Nielsen, which shows that the crime genre is continuing to soar in popularity, which is a trend led by younger readers and men, which is interesting as well. So not just the older middle-aged ladies that we're kind of used to having as the bulk of our readership, but apparently even more people are turning to crime in lockdown, particularly younger readers, and young apparently cuts off at 44. So, so I count as young.
Yeah, that's good news for one of us here.
And of the 3/4 of people saying their fiction interests have changed during lockdown, 26 say that crime and thriller books have become their genre of choice, which is lovely. That helicopter's getting very loud.
It is. It's very interested in you.
I love this, though, the atmosphere that we get from actually being outside. It's usually birds and chainsaws, but the helicopter's fun.
I find it very nurturing.
It is.
In its naturing.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely lovely.
It's
Well,
lovely
we are in a
outside.
very nice garden.
Thank you.
You have got green fingers.
Thank you.
Well, whenever I've seen them.
That will be the ink that's coming out of this pen. So on the shortlist, it contains, well, there are 5 previous contenders and a debut author on the list, Ian Braithwaite, who's on the list with My Sister the Serial Killer, which is Booker nominated as well. So
Wow.
hell of a year there. And is also the youngest person ever to be shortlisted for the Theakston's Old Peculier Crime Novel of the Year. The other 5 are all previous contenders, hoping that 2020 will be their year. Mick Herron's on the list.
Yes.
He's been likened to John le Carré. He's there. He's got his 5th nomination with Joe Country, which is the latest in the Slough House series.
I love them.
The Scottish Bengali author Abir Mukherjee is vying for the title, apparently, with Smoke and Ashes, which the Times described as one of the best crime novels since the war.
Yes, I've heard wonderful things about.
And not a recent war either, the Second World War. Helen Fitzgerald is on the list with Worst Case Scenario. That marks her first appearance since The Cry, which was adapted into a major BBC drama with Jenna Coleman. That was long-listed in 2013. Adrian McKinty. I've got this book here. It's the only one on the shortlist I actually own, unfortunately, with The Chain. He's from Belfast, and he's picking up his second Theakston's nod. Before he started writing this, he'd been evicted from his home and was working as an Uber driver in order to make ends meet. And I think it's fair to say things have certainly changed for him since then.
That's fantastic. I love stories like that.
And The Lost Man by former journalist Jane Harper. She was previously longlisted for The Dry 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the film adaptation is due to be released later this year, starring Eric Bana. So the full list: My Sister the Serial Killer by Ian Braithwaite, Worst Case Scenario by Helen Fitzgerald, The Lost Man by Jane Harper, Joe Country by Mick Herron, The Chain by Adrian McKinty, and Smoke and Ashes by Abir Mukherjee. Great list there.
Well, yes, our finger is on the pulse, really, to some degree, because we have covered 3 of those authors in some depth over the last couple of years, so we've got 3 others to catch up on. That's a very exciting list by the sounds of it.
23rd of July.
23rd of July.
The winner is announced. So
oh gosh, July is really getting quite busy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is going to be a busy month, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shall we have it off? The month of July, I mean. We'll wait till we finish recording, shall we?
This is the sort of thing that used to stop test match special in its tracks. With John is just uncontrollable. Well, yeah. Thank you for the kind invitation, Adam. But we're still social distancing.
It would be impressive if we could keep 2 metres apart, wouldn't it? So, moving on very quickly. If you are watching us, then you are, of course, already a Patreon subscriber. If you're not watching us, you can by subscribing. All the previous episodes are there to watch in full, glorious Technicolor. You can see my garden, you can see the books, you can see the effort we've gone to. Head over to patreon.com/Partners in Crime podcast, or check out the link in the show notes for that. If you do join, you also get a free book of the month every month, very kindly sponsored by Kobo, who sponsor the whole podcast. That's completely free to patrons. This month's superb thriller is Kill for Love by Malcolm Richards. It's had virtually all 5-star reviews at Kobo. It's been called gripping. Reviewers have said the plot will have you totally engrossed. It is a brilliant book, and yours completely free with your Patreon subscription. Bob.
Smashing. Well, I've got an excellent article by Izzy Price here, which is titled "A Killer Time for Crime," and this actually continues a theme that you've begun just now. I'm going to read it to you because it's absolutely fascinating, and I think it's spot on. A Killer Time for Crime. As thoughtful citizens, we are hemmed in now by gigantic problems that appear as insoluble as they are menacing. So how pleasant it is to take an hour or 2 off to consider only the problem of the body that locked itself in its study, and then use the telephone. So wrote J.B. Priestley somewhat prophetically in Delight when discussing the simple pleasures of detective stories. I wholeheartedly agree with him. Since lockdown began, I've been finding immense comfort in escaping into Agatha Christie novels whilst the horrors of the global pandemic continue to escalate around me. The current surge in crime fiction popularity has led to a boom in industry for the genre. Our crime shelves are definitely looking emptier, comments Emma Caulfield-Walter, founder and owner of Bookish Bookshops in, is that Crick or Hell? I can't pronounce that. I've noticed that we've sold quite a lot of historical crime, she adds, listing C.J. Sanson. as one of the authors. It's particularly popular. As one of their biggest sellers, along with Welsh authors Alice Hawkins.
Wealth Orshers.
Welsh Orshers. It's the Welsh marshes. So what is it about crime fiction that makes it so comforting during a crisis? Personally, I'm inclined to agree with J.B. Priestley. There is something so hugely reassuring in taking time to consider a simple problem that I can actually wrap my head around at a time when the exterior world is so unknowable and uncertain. Another factor could be that sense of resolution, of order being restored. While we read about the terrible ordeals endured by characters in the crime genre, we know that by the end of the story, the goodies will overcome the baddies, suggests author and CWA member Lee Russell. At the moment, I think we all crave that comfort while we wait for a release from lockdown and a vaccine to free us from our current anxiety and isolation. Emma Crick puts forward the idea that psychologically crime fiction presents a problem that someone else has to solve. You're not really being challenged because somebody else is doing all the hard work behind the scenes. You don't really have to work anything out, she explains, describing crime fiction as leading readers by the hand. When I'm so terrified by all the pervasive effects of the coronavirus, I want to be led by the hand. I want to be presented with a problem I can process as opposed to the vast and insoluble horror that is COVID-19. And I want to know that come the end, my questions will be answered and justice will have been restored. Let us hope that crime fiction's resilience in times of crisis won't continue to be tested. So far, however, this is a test that the genre seems to continue to pass, just like a look at the shortlist for the 2020 Crime Fest Award and the long list for the 2020 CW Daggers, and indeed the Harrogate Theakstons that you've just read out, Adam. Both released this week, and you'll see ample evidence that it is in the rudest of health for anyone looking for a sense of order amidst the chaos swirling all around us. I can recommend getting hold of a copy of And Then There Were None and losing yourself in what James Pritchard has termed Agatha Christie at her very best. There we are. That's Izzy Price on crime fiction in lockdown, and one of the more positive things that have come out of this appalling crisis.
Well, Jane Casey, the Irish crime writer, has been very positive, actually, about the rest of us, other crime writers. She was interviewed in the Irish News this week ahead of her new book, The Cutting Place, which is out now. She said crime writers tend to be incredibly happy and well-adjusted people. So she's
I'm sorry, I just
she's obviously not met many of us.
choked on my coffee there. Oh, well, yes.
Yeah, but
We'll have her out for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, she'll soon change her mind.
We
now.
can't disabuse her of that particular notion.
For an award-winning writer of dark and chilling crime fiction, Jane Casey remains a reliably calm and cheery person, says the Irish News article, although this, she insists, is a common characteristic among authors in her genre. Interestingly enough, this is not the first time this has come up, and I don't think it's the first time I've mentioned this on the show, actually. I did a talk at the Milton Keynes Literary Festival last year, which is quite a nice local one for a change, and a woman came up to me afterwards. I was doing a signing, and she came up and she said, I just wanted to come up and say, you actually seem like quite a nice person. I said, sorry? She said, you're actually quite a nice person. I said, thank you. You sound surprised. And she said, well, the things that you write and the characters that you write, I thought you'd be like that. I said, well, no. I mean, a lot of the time writers are almost the complete opposite of what they write. That's why they write it, isn't it? It's
well, also you are a very nice chap.
Well, I hope so.
And yeah, I mean, is it because readers think that crime writers, because they write what they do and in the manner that they do it, they've all gone to the dark side?
Yeah. And people kind of expect the worst of us, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I think that's. I mean, it's not our experience whenever we go to these wonderful
No.
crime festivals that you get throughout the world. Now, we always amazed at how jolly everyone is, and none of them, to my actually, no, one or two maybe.
Apart from that one,
Yeah, apart from that
Apart from
one,
that one.
yes, I remember that one. That was rather chilling.
Yes.
I thought, but the vast
We
majority
won't
of
talk about
crime
him.
writers, we won't talk about him. The vast majority of crime writers seem very amiable and clubbable, and jolly and nice and
Yes.
sweet and kind.
Of course, that one was particularly clubbable, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The Jane Casey says
Oh, he's unformed today, everyone.
3 coffees, 3. Jane Casey said crime writers tend to be incredibly happy and well-adjusted people, and I
Yes.
don't know why. It must be the way our brains are wired, she says. At the same time, I'm fascinated by the dark side of humanity, and I think it goes back to the first adult books I ever read, which were Agatha Christie novels, making her second appearance on the show today. She says, these were very formative for me, revealing how all her characters were questionable in some way. Agatha Christie was very good at making you question whether you could take a person at face value or not. She was, of course, discussing the 9th Maeve Kerrigan thriller, The Cutting Place, which is on shelves now. She goes on to talk quite a lot about the book. It's well worth actually checking out that article. It's got lots of fantastic stuff. The book does sound brilliant. Jane Casey, of course, brilliant crime writer too. We've got one of her books in front of us here as we're talking. There we go. Look, third one down there. The Burning
yes.
by Jane Casey. So yes, a writer that I'm familiar with and can thoroughly recommend.
Of course, people who are listening to this and not seeing it don't realise that the garden has been beautifully set with 2 tables and the microphones and everything, and an array of books, a bit like walking into a local bookshop, really, of some of our favourite writers. Who have I got? I've got, well, here's one straight off the bat, M.W. Craven, and who's this other one? Arthur Conan, I can't just catch the last name. Anyway, so yeah, it's a very nice setting. If we should describe it as they describe a mentioned test match special.
Well, it's a
For
garden.
those who aren't watching it, sort of we ought to say it's a lovely garden. It's green. You can't see the water feature, which is over in the corner there. It's rather beautiful.
Well, you know what? The problem I had, I was trying. I mean, obviously, our first priority had to be to keep us 2 metres apart at all times and to maintain social distancing rules. And
We had to do that even before the COVID.
exactly. Then, of course,
best.
secondary factors come in, like what kind of backdrop have we got? I didn't particularly want to do it in front of my barbecue.
Well, it's
for
a
example.
beautiful barbecue.
Then, can we get the camera far enough away that it would pick us both up in shot, 2 metres apart? And also the sun.
Oh.
Didn't want to be looking into the sun.
Well,
I mean, you
I
are.
am. I'm looking into the sun, but I'm also
The camera didn't want to be looking into the sun.
I'm also enjoying sort of getting a slight tan, which I don't usually associate with broadcasting. Interestingly enough, well, to me anyway, I was working with the BBC in a capacity for the last couple of days. I was in Chelmsford. A dear friend of mine was directing a celebration of the fact that 100 years ago, on June the 15th, 1920, the first ever entertainment broadcast was broadcast live from the Marconi factory in Writtle in Chelmsford, and a play had been written, and it was supposed to be produced and on stage, but for obvious reasons that couldn't happen. So it was arranged that they were going to do a radio broadcast live and do the play, and the first entertainment broadcast that came from Writtle for the BBC was Dame Nellie Melba, the famous Australian opera singer, who gave a concert. And it was the first time that a voice had been broadcast and heard all around the world. So it was incredible. So yesterday I was playing a chap called Peter Eckersley, who was the chief engineer at Writtle, and who announced Dame Nellie Melba. And it was kind of weird because, at 7:10 last night, well, it's a few days back now, at 7:10 last night, I actually had to say, ladies and gentlemen, it is 7:10 on this day, the 15th of June, 1920. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the Australian soprano Dame Nellie Melba. Thank you. And off she went.
On live radio?
On live radio. And it sort of really
what was that on? I missed that.
It was it's BBC Essex, and I think it's going on to the bigger channels, or whatever. And the opera singer was a wonderful opera singer with the name of Anna Steiger. You're waiting for a name drop here, aren't you?
I don't have the name drop alert buttons.
Yes,
set up
good.
out
I've got in
here,
undercover.
No, so
yes, she is the daughter of.
Curtis?
No. Didn't see that one coming. No. Rod.
Oh.
Rod Steiger.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and she was, my God, she's got I suggest probably a finer opera singing voice than her father.
Wow.
But anyway, and it was great, and a great bunch of friends from Essex sort of got together, and we had a jolly social. So that was very nice. The point of this long-winded trip down memory lane is that, of course, in those days they were broadcasting. They're beginning to broadcast. They were testing where broadcasting can go, and we now know that it's it's come on to all sorts of television, film, streaming, everything that we do. This particular podcast,
Idiots like us,
and it started way back then with Marconi and the technology that they were developing, and they were adapting ways to actually entertain people. And the point I'm sort of, as I say, laboriously making is we're in this sort of situation again, where this virus has closed down so much of the entertainment world. And so people are being drawn back to the spoken word again and again. Podcasts have become very popular. More people listening to radio. Audiobooks have had extraordinary sales over this period. So people are coming back to a medium which is sort of non-visual. And for those people who work in the visual, people are being tested and stretched to come up with new ways to get around the restrictions that we've had to live under and will continue to live under to some degree for some time to come. And that, in turn, will begin to revolutionise the way people broadcast or present things. And so, again, there's a sort of a slight optimistic thing in this terrain of awfulness that is the virus, is it is pressing creative people and technologically minded people to actually take what already exists and adapt it to the conditions that we're having to live under. And I think that's very, very exciting.
It is, yes. Especially exciting to talk about that with the sound of my wife doing some dentistry in the background there.
What's the famous Laurence Olivier line from Marathon Man? I forget.
I don't know.
That was, God, I couldn't go to the dentist for years after that.
I think we are about there. We are.
Are we already?
Yes, we are. 32 minutes nearly. So yes.
Well, we should finish with a little.
We can't talk about that one just yet.
We're not going to talk about that one.
We've got to read that one, and then we've got to review it, and then we've got to have her on. That's for you to take home and read that one.
Right, thank you.
We'll leave that.
It's called homework. It's homework. My daughters are doing all their lessons online at the moment, and my youngest daughter's enjoying it very much, and my eldest daughter's just doing her A-levels, but she's back to school.
Really?
Next week she's actually going back, but it's a strange world, So at 9 o'clock they clock on to their, geography, their history, their religious studies, their, whatever, and they get down and they hold the lessons. I mean, that again is technology adapting to the circumstances, as I say, and it's quite extraordinary that. Fighting against, dare I say it, a very confused policy from certain areas of. Well, don't get me started on that. But
so gave me the heebie-jeebies talking about lessons and things.
On the floor, the teachers, head teachers, the people who are actually organising these things, really do deserve a salute because they are doing an extraordinary thing, and they are managing to continue as best they possibly can the education of our children, which is the grassroots of everything, our future, and a lot. So well done them. So, to put it mildly...
Can you make it sound a little more patronising?
Okay. Well done. Oh, I say, well done, you chaps. And you people. Excellent work. No, they are. I mean, they're quite extraordinary, and it's not restricted to. I mean, my experience is only with my girls' school, but my son is at university in Bristol. It's exactly the same thing. They're absolutely on it. They're doing their level best to keep the studies going, to keep the interaction, to keep their education going through these, solitary times for everyone. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's quite amazing what they're doing, and I don't think they quite get enough credit.
No, absolutely. It does give me the heebie-jeebies, though, thinking about these lessons and 9 o'clock history and geography, because I was not a fan of school.
No, well, it feels like doing a podcast with you.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Daws and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.